On today's Rebel's Edge, Nvidia's unstoppable bull run continues in the run-up to a 10-for-1 stock split. Investors dance for yoga pants as Lululemon crushes earnings. And how low can Five Below go? The trade-down squeeze hits discount retailers as low-income consumers continue to cut back on spend, while higher-income consumers flock to specialty retail. All that and more on today's Rebel's Edge.
Bang! Bang! Another spectacular cold open by the one and only Marc LoPresti.
I think you'd like the yoga pants one, John.
I love the yoga pants. Folks, we are still broadcasting from Cardone Enterprises here in beautiful Aventura, Florida. We appreciate all of you joining us. Pete is traveling today, so you've got Jon Najarian, Marc LoPresti, and you know the drill. Market Rebellion brings you the Rebel Edge Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday every week. And Pete didn't get the memo, I guess, that travel day is Friday, Mark.
Yeah.
So he's traveling today. But nonetheless, we welcome all of you. We're going to cover Macro Minute, fantastic futures, stocks, and yes, sports.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, you know, our viewers got the 3-for-1 yesterday, John.
3-for-1.
And that's a lot of fun, as it always is. We love doing the show here. We love doing it together, this incredible studio that our business partner and friend Grant graciously provides to us whenever we're here. So we're going to try to do it as often as they'll let us, folks. But John, what do you got for the Macro Minute?
Macro Minute, Mark, I'm going to say that we've got a jobs report looming, heading our way tomorrow. It'll be announced at just after 8 o'clock, 8:30 tomorrow. That's Eastern time, folks. And I think, Mark, overall, that's something we should pay attention to. And I'm just going to throw this out because it was the front page of Yahoo today, that the Russian Navy is going to be doing drills in the Caribbean. And these are aircraft carriers, nuclear warships that are going to be in the Caribbean, just south of where Mark and I are right now. I'm not real pleased about that, Mark.
No, it's definitely going to make for some interesting boating over the next few days in that part of the world.
We're not leaving port.
No, for sure. That's not a good thing. I'm, of course, like the rest of the market, looking for that important May jobs number tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually, John, I saw a statistic this morning that I found pretty interesting. There are more jobs available, still more job openings than there are unemployed people, meaning people that are looking for jobs. So the street's looking for around 188K is sort of the consensus right now. The prior period was 175,000, of course. But the market it's cooling a little bit, which is what the Fed and J. Powell want to see to get that confidence for that first rate cut that we're all still hoping and begging for. But the market still remains strong, as evidenced by the fact that there's more jobs than there are people looking for them.
Yep. And that leads us right into fantastic futures. And the reason it leads us into that is that, Mark, we've got a lot of folks betting again against Jay Powell and the FOMC, Federal Open Markets Committee, because they think one reading might possibly give them the opportunity to anticipate lower interest rates. That's a bad bet. I'm not saying we won't see lower interest rates sometime after September, Mark, but these guys aren't focused on one reading.
That's
so
right.
Gold futures spiking this week. We're also seeing a lot of the central banks that followed what happened in London with a 1/4 point cut. That was widely anticipated. This is not a surprise. So should our markets be moving on that? No, is my answer.
No, and nor do I think that gold necessarily should be surging. And a lot of people this morning were tying it to that ECB, European Central Bank, 1/4 point cut that John mentioned earlier. And, you know, I was asked on my SiriusXM show this morning, and shout out to our friends over there at Wharton Business Daily for having me on all the time, whether or not the ECB's move would influence Chairman Powell and the FOMC in any way, shape, or form. My answer to that is a resounding no. But obviously, gold bugs happy today on a surging price on gold.
Yeah. And, You know who else is happy? Nvidia shareholders. Again.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, we had unusual on this one yesterday, folks. The stock was right around 1,205 or 1,209, something like that. The stock moves so fast, it's hard to say. But they were buying the 1,260 calls, Mark.
The Julys.
Yeah. So a lot of time for those to be right. The stock surged all the way up to 1,255 yesterday. And then today, this morning, sold off all the way down to 1,184. This is a stock that's splitting 10 for 1 after the close tomorrow, Friday. So a lot of good news for Nvidia. Shareholders delighted by the 500% rally, actually, that we've seen, 580% rally, Mark, in the last 3 years. Hardly been a better place to have your money. And now it overtakes my favorite stock, Mark.
Yeah, well, it joins the 3T club, right?
Mm-hmm.
The $3 trillion club. Break out the hats and the T-shirts. Our friends on the floor of the New York that sell those, of course. But yeah, it's a remarkable story. People ask, can this continue? Can this bull run continue? It's in the nosebleed section when it comes to price. We know it's an expensive stock, folks. That's one of the reasons why, if you want to play it, you got to play the options. Of course, are unusual in that on the July 1260s yesterday, just further confirmation that it works to follow the smart money. And look, I think when push comes to shove, and I'm asked this question all the time, whether it's on media or cocktail parties, can it go higher? The answer is yes, it can go higher.
Yep, it can. But if you were somebody who wanted to bet against it, you might pay close attention to where it finishes tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because that 10 for 1 stock split is something that's obviously been widely anticipated since the earnings and since they made that call. But normally we see sort of a pullback. And so was today's pullback to 1184 that? I don't think that was enough yet. We'll see.
I don't think so either. I mean, that's a good question, John. Typically, after a split, what happens to a stock?
After a split, more shareholders can get in at the cheaper price. It didn't change a damn thing about the fundamentals of the company.
Right.
It just put 10 times as many shares out there at 1/10 the price.
Right.
That's all that happened. But access to shares, normally we see the stocks make pullbacks after these.
Right.
And then might be a buying opportunity.
Yeah.
I'll just throw it out there. All right. Lululemon, Mark. The stock surging better than expected earnings. They announced 2024 guidance that was in line, at least in line, maybe even above most street estimates. They also said, you know what? We're going to throw another $1 billion at share buybacks. And that is a big deal. The stock is rocking today. Wedbush loved this move. We loved the move. I know Pete did because he's a big shareholder.
Yeah. And he was definitely one of the doing the yoga pants dance this morning. That's for damn sure. Look, there's a couple things going on with the story about this stock. Number one, international sales beating expectations, 40% increase in sales in China alone on a year-over-year basis. They got a new chief product officer who seems to be doing the right thing, making the right moves. And again, this is a story. I know we've been covering it a lot, folks, but it's such an important story because it touches on interest rates, it touches on the economy, and that is American consumers, particularly the middle and higher income, are willing to continue to spend on specialty discretionary consumer retail.
Specialty, exactly.
We saw it with all the footwear names and how they've done and continue to perform very well through the end of this earnings season. Lulu, part of that bandwagon, I think, John. Specialty retail with a strong following, a cult following, if you will, in a lot of the
Sure.
gyms and the workout set, and this company benefiting. Can they keep it up going into the next quarter? We'll see.
Yeah, well, it's not a bad time for them because as the next quarter will take into account what's happening right now in the markets leading into the fourth quarter, of course, when they have the benefit of most retailers that push into Black Friday.
Yeah.
And basically Labor Day to Black Friday.
And this is a name that should benefit from some seasonality, right? It's the spring and summer. People are out. They're working out more. They're getting in shape more to get those beach bods. So it could also be good for Lulu. What else you got, John?
Smartsheet. SMAR. You look at this one, folks, it is rocking. And Canaccord Genuity, one of our cadre of investment banks that Mark and I have dealt with over time.
Yep.
They put a buy rating on the stock, price target $52 a share. Last night it was under 37 or 38 bucks a share. So nice upside target on this one. And EPS and revenue coming in looking pretty sharp, pretty strong. So I'd say Smartsheet, which is basically something that allows people to basically plan, have a dashboard for their company, plan out all the different things that they want to do for that company, from sales to marketing and all the rest. This is a very nice move. Revenue growth up 20+%.
Yeah, and this is a great sector. I said this is workforce or workflow management. Anybody that's used Asana or Mondays or any of the other names in the space, they've been doing really, really well. It's B2B stuff, right? That's that SaaS recurring B2B revenue. I think, Jon, as we hinted when we covered Salesforce CRM's earnings a few shows ago, we could see continued consolidation in the space, the potential acquisition of HubSpot. That's another big CRM name. This is not CRM specifically. This is workflow and workforce management. It's related, though.
It is.
I think this thing could go higher. I think you could see the sector go higher on consolidation and some M&A activity. I'm going to go out on a limb and say we're going to actually see that. We're going to see that a HubSpot acquisition, which is going to be a major shot across the bow to Mr. Benioff and our friends over at Salesforce. This name could continue to benefit from that trend.
Well, then we've got not so good.
No.
Five Below, falling far below.
Five Below. Well, I think you have to do the low voice now for Five Below.
Five Below.
Yeah.
Lower than expected Q1 earnings and revenue, disappointing EPS guidance. I mean, that's the triumvirate. You have those three things bad. There's no stock, not even Nvidia, that could weather that, Mark. As many people as love Nvidia, almost that same amount hate Five Below right now, and the stock reflects it. Somebody at Barclays still has a buy rating on the stock. The buy rating's up there at 176. This one closed yesterday at 132. It's a lot lower than that right now.
Man, I don't get that one. And look, if you've ever been in a Five Below, you kind of could have seen this one coming. There's nothing that Five Below sells that you absolutely need, right? It's not on that like milk, sugar, eggs list that you're running out to get the essentials.
Or your specialty retailer.
Or your specialty retailers, right? Of course. And at the end of the day, it's a continuation of that story. And we're also seeing it, by the way, Jon, with Dollar Tree and Family Dollar and the dollar stores. You would think, intuition would tell you, that those types of names and those type of companies would actually do well as consumers continue to try to stretch that already stretched dollar. But the reality of it is that trend and that path has limits to it. We're starting to see it. We've seen significant weakness. They're calling it the trade down squeeze. We called it the trade down trade a year and change ago, and it worked. Right? It worked at that stage of the inflation and the interest rate game. Not so much anymore. So the low end of those discount retailers like Five Below and the dollar stores, they're all getting hit pretty hard. As, by the way, names like Walmart and Target see those middle and higher income customers willing to come through the doors as they bargain hunt, and they're actually changing some of their product placement, some of their pricing,
some of their employees.
Some of that employee training story that we covered yesterday briefly on the show. Very, very interesting dynamic to see how retail, specialty, discount, and middle of the road are all reacting to this higher for longer environment.
Absolutely. Well, I know a lot of you are thinking, well, Jon and Marc on the show today, you're not going to talk sports. Yes, we are. And we're going to talk about
sports.
Well, because it's Pete's Red Zone Sports.
It is.
It's not Marc's Red Zone Sports. It's not Jon's Red Zone Sports. It's Pete's Red Zone Sports. But, Marc, in Paris Olympics are 50 days out right now.
Wow.
So what's going to happen? Well, it'll be a lot of pomp and circumstance. It'll be hopefully a lot of American gold medals. We root for the team.
Absolutely.
But they also have two big things going on in the river. Now, you pronounce it Seine?
The Seine.
The Seine?
The Seine.
The Seine River. In Paris, folks, there's a river that runs through it. Sort of like that book, A River Runs Through It. But in Paris, that river, you have not been allowed to swim in that river since 1923. And there's a good reason for that. The people that didn't come back out alive for the most part. Well, they've allegedly been cleaning that river, Mark. And this will be the telling tale of these Olympics, because they're going to do a marathon swim in there. They're also doing a triathlon swim in there. And in that filthy river, now maybe they found some great way with BioLargo products to clean it or something like that. That's a company that Mark and I are paid to help promote, BioLargo, and they have stuff for PFAS and all kinds of other good stuff. But it's not the PFAS I'm worried about. I'm worried about all the other stuff that's in that river, Mark. What do you think?
I believe the French call it merde.
Merde.
Yes. But listen, if you've ever, and I love Paris, right? I mean, if you've ever stood on the Pont Neuf, which famously has all of those locks that have been placed there by
they have to
couples
take
over
them
the
off
years.
Every year now.
They have to.
It gets too heavy. It's too many tons of locks.
That's exactly right. If you look into that Seine River, which I've done many times, man, oh man, I don't care what the gold medal or whatever I ain't jumping in. So this is, I think they're going to wind up giving them a lot of injections and antibacterial shots of things of that nature.
Yeah, I can only imagine how terrible some of these athletes are going to get, because again, if you've ever watched a triathlon swim, folks, these guys, men and women, are going on top of each other and plow through the water to, compete in this triathlon. And that's the first part of the triathlon. They have to do that. Then they do the 100-mile bike race. Then they do the marathon after that. And these guys are going to, the skin is your largest organ.
Yes.
And you're in there in that filthy water. And I don't know how it's possible that they would have cleaned it up enough, Mark, but I'm sure people covering the Olympics will be talking about this 50 days from now.
Since it's in Paris, is the triathlon going to involve in between events a wine and a fromage break, or perhaps a croissant? It should. All right, enough about the Paris Olympics, Jon.
Okay, we've also got the NBA kicking off game one of the finals, NBA finals, and it's going to be, of course, the Mavericks at the Boston Celtics. And Mark had some interesting stats that he wanted to share about that, because if you're a betting man or woman, there are some statistics, lies, damn lies, and statistics.
That's right.
But there are some factoids that he's going to share, because it turns out that how game one goes, frequently that's how the series goes.
Yeah, very frequently, and a hell of a matchup and great must-see TV for the NBA, the Mavs and the Celtics. We're going to be watching that one for sure ourselves. But the team, and I did do a little digging to share with our great Rebel Nation, the team that wins game one, Jon, something like 70% of the time takes the crown. That's not like 51%. That is a massive, massive advantage. And the team that wins game one at home, so if you're lucky enough to have the home team advantage,
if you have the Celtics tonight and they win,
right?
What's the percentage?
That goes up to almost 80%, right? 78.9 or something like that, that they actually wind up taking the whole thing, right? So very interesting to see if the Celtics can play that home court advantage to their advantage.
And they've been unbeatable at home this year.
They absolutely have.
So I'm thinking they win game one. If Luka, Doncic, and the Mavs manage to take game one, only 44% of the time does that team end up winning it all. But I got to believe if Luka, Doncic, and those guys are able to win in Boston, I think that gives them a much more significant advantage than the stats that we shared.
Yeah.
I think it could be all over but the fat lady singing. And that fat lady would no longer be in the building. She has left the building if indeed Luka and the Mavericks win in Boston. But that's not my prediction. I think Boston wins tonight.
I just have to say, I think we need to avoid body shaming singing fat ladies, Jon. So we may need to come up with a
spherically challenged. What would be the best way to say that?
I'm going to work on that one.
All right.
Well, Jon, you'll do the sign off. Good.
Folks, thank you for joining us. Please go claim your free book by going to itsnotanoption.com. How do I know how popular that is? Because Pete, as he boarded the plane today, had the pilot himself come out and greet Pete and say, you know what, Pete? It's no longer an option to not fly Delta, because that was a Delta flight. And he said, Pete, it's not an option to fly anybody else, which indicated strongly that he knew about the book.
Yeah.
You can claim the book. It's not an option.com. Free shipping, free book, unless you need it right away for the weekend. Then you might pay a few bucks to get it that fast. But other than that, free book. It's not an option.com. Marc LoPresti, Jon Najarian. Have a great one, folks. We'll be back Monday.